I entered through my front door and stumbled back into my room. What I saw was terrifying. Something was very, very different about my room. Glancing at my possessions on the shelf, some of what I owned was now defiled. All of my Mario games seemed to have some type of change made to their covers. Those with Mario on the cover depicted him without his hat and had a flood of tears streaming down a newly distressed face. He appeared to be crying about something. Touching my case of Super Mario Galaxy, oh my god, the white casing felt very, very warm, and not in a comforting way. It felt like I was literally touching the face of a living, breathing person. And touching the tears, they left my fingertips damp. I couldn't even pick up any traces of the gasps I knew to be leaving my mouth, for my heart was pounding much too loud. I could hardly think, but the depictions of Mario were songs spoken from an angel compared to what I saw next. Every single depiction of Luigi showed his artwork to be a murky, sable figure with the exact same shape he was as before. It was the same as a fussy child, coloring in a doodle that he couldn't stand to see anymore, with the darkest color of crayon they could find. Not a single bit of this black shading was irregularly filled in, nor was any of it beyond Luigi's outline, which was now colored a horrid tinge of what I would call malignant mauve. Now I knew that something wasn't right at all. These outlines were polarizing to the way Mario had been changed, whereas touching the red brother, I felt the foreboding but frigidly warm feeling of touching someone's imprisoned face, what I would name a wake-up call to the senses. The variances the shapes of Luigi had been plagued with was an essence I'd only ever felt in the darkest of my nightmares. The violet streaks seemed to have been carved by something sharp and imbued with a menacing evil, glowing purple like a sun-drenched amethyst jewel. The inner lines resembled a wicked alchemist's tonic cased in a black vial, and they were pulsating like veins. With the impulse of hexing curiosity overpowering me, I slowly reached out to touch it. The shading felt colder than anything I've ever felt before. It was like the repulsive sensation of touching a dearly departed, gelid, hollow cadaver. My throat dry as dust. I swallowed hard as reaction to this haunting phenomena. I then touched the most insidious portion of all, the outline. Touching it caused my finger to receive unbelievable, searing agony. I screamed in pain, reeling my arm back swiftly and stepped away from it, as if to avoid a contagious disease. The vein-like frames around the silhouette left my finger with a visible, almost voltaic laceration tinted black. I imagine this is what touching the tentacles of a jellyfish would feel like, feeling nothing but pain. I dipped my injured finger into my mouth, hoping that would help tone the unbearable burning feeling down. Then, I noticed one of my games was missing entirely. My copy of Luigi's Mansion was gone. Just knowing that I had an even bigger depiction of Luigi up on my wall, I slammed my eyes shut and quivered in a stiff stance. I was horrified to even open another eye, but I knew that I had to see it eventually. I forcefully rotated my pathetic, shivering body back over the head of my bed and opened my eyes. The giant poster of Luigi I had posted up on my wall had a collection of huge, black scratches swiped across it. Every hint of green was grayscale, which was no surprise to me at this point. However, the sight of this poster in shreds shot a grimacing chill down my spine. Something, a raptor by the looks of it, clawed out everything from head to feet. There was a scrape down the center that seemed to have been more powerful than the rest, since it glowed with the same hue of the pulsating veins, and the claw marks dug straight through the wall itself. My face froze solid for a long minute, until I punched myself and clenched the rims of my eye sockets. What the hell is happening to me? I began to cry, feeling more and more scared as every second passed. I desperately wanted to know who would do this to anyone, let alone poor little Luigi. I knew there was only one way to find out for sure. I looked over at my DSi flat on the hope chest with the sneer of illogical resentment. It was officially my enemy, and I had to defeat it, no matter what. I angrily gripped the heinous device and pulled it with me into the base of my bed, starting Bowser's Inside Story up once more. No splash animation played. It brought me right to the title screen. A very different one from before. The word Luigi and the ampersand were not present in the logo. Whatever fragments of the original title left over were a trifle bolder than some of the other letters. It literally read off as Mario, Bowser's Inside Story. I see that it spelled out a cryptic message to me, but I didn't know what it meant. A 1? I don't get it. Ignoring every bit of altered material on the startup screen, I simply chose Start Game with a very unhappy feeling. The standard file selection looked different too. Every icon of Luigi was missing. There was no green whatsoever, and instead it said choose a save file E. But as I looked over to the right side, I noticed a third file pane slightly exposed to my sight. I went to select it, and it looked like an ordinary empty file. No odd text aside from the L missing from the title, and it was even numbered as the third file to select, even though the game only allows 2 to exist. So, I selected the third file. What should have been an opening cutscene was instead replaced by the first instance of overworld gameplay. The place was Peach's castle, except it was the version Fawful had usurped in the story, but still playing like the beginning of the game. Mario slowly entered the picture from the bottom screen, short of his hat and all by his lonesome. I was able to control Mario like normal, but his in-game sprite was very different. He appeared to be frowning very strongly, and his eyebrows were curved downwards, exhibiting a depressed disposition. His skin was also much paler than the usual color. Its complexion was like that of a ghost. He was not the same Mario at all. The second icon that belonged to Luigi, that was always mapped on the upper hand corner, completely gone. I tapped the B button in vain for about an hour, just wishing it would make Luigi come back and hop once more. My wish never came true. Mario's icon remained untouched, except for the HP counter. It showed the number at 0, which is impossible to see on the overworld. I walked around to see if anything else changed. In mere minutes, I ran into a room filled with a few Toad NPCs. They were in the exact same position as before, but were now wearing masks, very much like the creatures Fawful brainwashed and turned into enemies in the story. Their eyes were replaced by spiraling spectacles, and the same grin the Beanish Lord always has showing. It freaked me the hell out. I spoke to every last one of them, and they had this to say. Oh, it's just you. Did you enjoy that one-up mushroom? Not so super. Are you, Redcap? Defect. I couldn't believe what I was reading. The Toads addressed me as if I were a criminal, clearly ashamed of something I did. And that last remark, defect, that sliced my heartstrings. I was baffled by every bit of this. The game was upset with both me and Mario. But why? All I wanted was an answer. What did I do to deserve this? With nowhere else to go but the conference room, I had no choice but to enter the top. The second I entered the conference room, I was blocked off by 2 guard toads. They too were wearing those freaky masks, and they also spoke to me. A 1, are you? A payy face is a gooey tie face. The right-hand guard jumped squarely onto Mario's head, taking his hammer away from him. This is a hero's hammer. It's about time you returned it. Pulling the hammer straight back, the brainwashed Toad forcefully slammed it clear against the back of Mario's head, knocking him out cold. Mario collapsed face first onto the floor, not even shouting in anguish from the painful-looking blow to the head. The Toads began to drag Mario's limp body by his legs. The scene was ended by an iris wipe as the Toads were taking Mario into some other room.